Welcome to Powering Through Life, and I'm your host, Teresa Sims. Each week on Powering Through Life, my guest and I will discuss a special topic that is close to their heart. Together, we will explore the challenges they have faced in life and learn what strategies and tools they have used to power through their life. So welcome to Powering Through Life. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Powering Through Life. I'm your host, Teresa Sims, and I have the most incredible guest with me today. Very dear friend of mine. Her name is Roberta Brown, and Roberta's topic today is about resilience. Now, Roberta is a survivor, a thriver, an entrepreneur, and a warrior goddess friend of mine.
So, warrior
goddess. So welcome, Roberta, to Powering Through Life.
Thank you. So the topic is resilience, and I have a little thing to read and about my book. This book right here.
Yes, a very exceptional book, by the way, called Should It? Yes, yes.
So the book is my child abuse and domestic violence survivor to the happy, healthy person I am today. My intent of writing the book was to pay all of my lessons forward and give language to the feelings and assure others that they are not alone.
That's amazing. And you've been successful doing that, I know, because your book touched my heart.
Aww.
And it did. And it really gave me a chance to get to know you on a different level than what we already know each other as. Because I read your book first and then we became friends. So that's
how could we not become friends?
Well, exactly. And it's been a lovely journey, I really must say. So, Roberta, what would you change if you changed anything from your past?
Would change nothing. All of what happened brought me to where I am today. Maybe if I had to say something to that, I would say the intensity of the abuse. Physical abuse. But it really did shape me in ways that I wouldn't have been shaped had it not happened. So, certainly it was difficult to understand what happened. It took me a very long time. I really didn't get the last piece of. I was 51 years old. I'm 61 now. 10 years have really brought me to a place where I have peace, which doesn't mean that I don't suffer from PTSD now and again, not a lot anymore, but there certainly are, there are times where, PTSD does rear its ugly head.
Yes.
That's to be expected, but it's a different way of dealing with it now. So
I think when you experience post-traumatic stress and you live with it every day of your life, like we both do, those triggers do happen, but you learn different ways of deflating those triggers. But there are times when they're exceptional in a way and above and beyond what the average person can deal with. And sometimes that's just a way of them saying to us, hey, there's a little something that hasn't been dealt with yet. You need to refocus or need to go back and do some more work around this particular aspect of.
And I found the last incident that triggered me, and I didn't even realize that's what did it. I had to go back and say, okay, what exactly happened? Was there a familiarity to the abusive feeling that happened that triggered it? And it did, and that's exactly what it was. And I'm a pretty even keeled kind of gal, and it takes a lot to push me to get me to lose my temper. And I really lost my temper because somebody was insinuating, it's hard to explain, but it's insinuating that I was less than. I saw that eye roll. Yeah, you know the story.
You weren't supposed to see that.
And it was starting and he kept doing it. And it happened to be my boss at the time. And I take a breath, he said, he lost my mind. I mean, I never scream. I'm just not a screamer. And I was yelling at him, and he was standing over me at my desk, and he kept leaning in to yell at me. And I kept asking him to step back. And finally, I, just blew. I was feeling threatened, obviously.
Absolutely. And
So
that's what happens, right? When it gets triggered and someone, you're trying to tell them nicely to just back off, give me some time.
back, and he wouldn't step back. In fact, the more I said step back, the closer he got. And I thought, nope, I'm going to lose it. And I did. And the next thing he said to me was, I want you to go and sit somewhere and think about what you've said to me. And I thought, and you're my father now. God.
That probably brought back a lot of terrible memories, I'm sure.
Oh, hell no. You don't get to talk to me this way.
No, absolutely.
And we worked it out. It was fine.
Good.
He's no longer my boss, which is really good.
That's important. That's really good, because you know what? No one, I don't care who they are, no one has a right to talk to another human being that way, or belittle them, or humiliate them, or bear down on them like that. No. In so many different ways.
I'm really a personal space person.
Yeah. And
if you get too close to me and I step back and you step up and you're still trying to be too close to me, it's going to be a problem eventually.
Yeah, and you know what? I find I'm the same way. It must be part of the post-traumatic stress. It must be part of our upbringings or our situations that happened in our lives. We need that personal space as our boundaries, and that's our safe place. And anyone that challenges that safe place, it's not good.
No, and you feel it brings back a feeling of intimidation and fear and various other things that it's just a lot. It piles on, and then PTSD. And I mean, but there's so many different kinds of post-traumatic stress, and there's the blowing, which I generally do. I fugue out mostly. If I'm really stressed, I'll just disappear for a while, and then I'll come to and go, oh, look at all the things I put away. Look at how everything is just perfectly done. But I have no memory of doing that.
So it's a deeper set reaction that you take to whatever is going on at that particular time, and how threatened you're feeling. And it's interesting how that works and how that happens, and we aren't even conscious of what we're doing sometimes because of the backgrounds and the life situations, right?
Well, and I think with PTSD, regardless of how they got the PTSD, experience that same thing. It's a real common thread.
Yeah.
And you learn to deal with it. However you deal with it.
Right.
33 years of therapy, or however long I was in therapy. It's a lot of work.
It is, and it's not. Well, honestly, it can happen overnight, but it's not something that goes away overnight. If it ever goes away, it does take a lot of work, conscious effort, and all that.
Absolutely.
Lifetime of working towards it. So how did you manage to deflate the post-traumatic stress and learn tips and tools to manage it more effectively? Well, what are those tools?
I give myself that, and I think you and I have personally talked about this, is that 3-second delay between your brain and your mouth.
Yes.
You take a deep breath and you go, does this need to be said right now? Or, if you have that presence of mind to be able to do that. So, but that takes a lot of work. I mean, it's not like one day you have PTSD and the next day you have all the tools and it works perfectly.
True.
So it's just a lot of work. There's also, you have to figure out, what's an important battle for me to fight right now? Do I need to answer this? Because you come this is funny. I was just having this conversation at lunch with my friend. There are people who need the last word.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
And you have to learn that you're not one of those people, because that continues the cycle.
Yeah.
And it takes years of training not to go, so, and
And then what? No.
and then what?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I think.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's just enough that somebody has said something so awful and you want to respond, which keeps you locked into that.
Yes.
And then you get to the last word contest. And that's very much my mother. So my mother always needed the last word. So we would finish whatever we were fighting about, and she goes, well, fine, then you get the last word. Well, if I were to say anything after that, so you just have to learn what battles you want to fight.
Well, that and is it what you're going to say relevant? Is it going to help?
Exactly.
Is it going to harm? Is it coming from a place of love, compassion, or kindness?
Exactly.
If not, well then,
Yes. I'm just dealing with a situation like that. Somebody texted me out of the blue and had something to say to me, which was insane. Just like a crazy notion. And I thought, well, what do I want to say back to that? Absolutely nothing, because that speaks volumes.
Yes.
Done.
It's
And
about engaging in the game, right? Whether
exactly.
you want to play in the game or not. And that person is obviously looking for you to interact, and it won't be healthy if you know.
Well, it's bait.
Yes.
You take the bait or don't you?
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm so over, and I don't know if it's the age or all the therapy I've had. I'm just over taking the bait anymore.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't need to be absolutely right. I don't need to have the last word. I don't need to make myself feel better by saying something awful, because it doesn't make you feel better.
Yeah.
Because later you just go, oh, why did I say that? And then of course that locks you into like a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you need that for?
Well, we don't. We don't. And why do we need all that extra drama in our lives? We've got enough going on. There's enough going on in the world that we don't need to add petty little things to it.
I'm getting ready to move where you are, just to get away from some of the stuff.
I told you before. Door's always open.
drag the two cats and me and join you.
Oh, I don't know how to get along with the dogs, but maybe it'll work. You never know. We'll make it work. So what would you like people to know about the real Roberta?
That's
a deep subject, I know.
Deep subject, yeah, well-watered deep subject. I guess if you knew me from way back, you know that I was, nobody knew why. I mean, I just wasn't centered. And who's centered when they're little anyway? But there was all this added stuff going on in my house, all this abuse and then the bullying in the neighborhood and bullying at school. There was just no let up from it, and I was horribly insecure, but loud. For being horribly insecure, and acting out at times as I got older, and not necessarily in a positive way, and and in all these different times in my, there was a reason for all of this. It was abuse, it was insecurity, it was being with the wrong people, it was doing the wrong things, it was all kinds of not necessarily. But I didn't know what I was doing yet. Once I started therapy, it was still difficult, but I had to start unraveling what was happening. Yes, there was physical abuse. Yes, there was mental abuse. Yes, there was emotional abuse. And from my family, translated into any relationship I had. So I was getting into emotionally abusive relationships and physically abusive relationships, and I couldn't understand how this was happening because it felt normal, which is in itself not even, it's just an oxymoron. I mean, how is that normal? But if you grow being beaten up, being told that you're less than, being told that you're stupid, careless, and lazy, being told all these terrible things about yourself, how do you have any self-worth to stand up to someone who would be good for you? I mean, how would you stand up to defend yourself? And how would you find some good person to bring into your life?
Well, you wouldn't allow the good person to come in because you feel you're not worthy of that good person, because this is all you knew. This is what you thought was who you were, what you were supposed to be, and how your relationships were supposed to be. That's what you thought was normal. Mm-hmm. Anything that came in was totally different and scary, and you didn't deserve it. I was the same way.
Yes, and that's a major bond between the two of us.
That's right.
And I'm very lucky that I met my best friend at 16 or 15, I think, and we're still friends. She was coming from the same sort of household I was, so we understood what was going on, but didn't understand what was going on. Mm. We understood each other, but we didn't understand the rest of the dynamic of it all.
Well, it's nice to have someone you can lean on like that. Whether they're helpful or not, they're just having that bond there of someone that's going through the same thing kind of helps you, because at least you're understood by someone.
So what I would want question is that you have to keep learning. You have to keep pulling apart, unraveling, whatever you want to call it, in order to get to the truth of why you were that person. Realize why you were that person. You can undo some of the pain and move forward and become the person you really are, which is who I am now. And probably always was under all of that insecurity and all that abuse that was happening. And so I guess that's what I would want people to know, that it is possible to heal yourself from all these wounds. And yes, there's still PTSD. Yes, there's still occasional pain when you think about how does a father beat up his daughter to the point where she's unrecognizable? How you can't completely undo that. And I talk about it a lot in my book. And I talk about this, a moment between my dad and I before he died. And I thought he never thought about that day that he almost killed me. There it was, and he said it out loud. And I oddly enough fugued out. I'm not sure how I drove us home, but I have no memory of anything admitted to nearly killing me. And it was such, it threw me into a fugue state of, oh my God, he really knows.
Yeah.
And he was in his 90s when he said that to me. He died at 94. And he was about 91 or 2, I think, when he said it. It was all I could do. I don't even know how I got home. I had to drop him off and help him inside. I have not a big recollection of that day.
But it must have just brought everything like right back into your face.
Yeah.
And the reality of he knew what he was doing.
That's awful.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, look how sorry he was.
Yeah.
Which is what you'd think. But it wasn't an apology. It was an admission.
Wow.
Which horrific.
Yeah.
And I fugued out, totally fugued out.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. That's beyond what the mind can process at any time, especially when you knew what he was like, you knew what he had done, and then all of a sudden he's just like, oh yeah, there
Oh
you
yeah,
go.
I did that.
Yeah,
And I had spent my whole life trying never hit me again.
mm.
Even into his 90s, I didn't trust him. I didn't trust him.
Well, for obvious reasons. I mean, that statement was, yeah, you good choice of not trusting because,
Well, yeah,
I
it's
mean,
interesting. This is just I don't think I've ever said this to you in a personal conversation, but it's really interesting. His second wife is still alive. She's got to be 96 by now. I haven't spoken to her for years. I like divorced her because she's not good for me either.
mhm.
And I realized that I don't even consider my father completely dead. Have I ever said this to you before? I don't think so.
I'm not sure, but that's interesting. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so when we were making arrangements for his final wishes, he wanted to be cremated, which in Judaism isn't really a common thing. And his statement was, well, I don't know whether to bury the bottom half with your mother or with my new wife, which is, oh, I haven't had this conversation with you. So I just, I, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I know, right?
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Tells a
So
story of what the most important aspect of his life was.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
My goodness.
so they split his ashes.
Well,
So
hopefully they
half
each
of
got
him is
half.
buried with my mother, and the other half is waiting to be buried with his second wife. So it doesn't feel over to me.
No, if the second half isn't buried yet, then yeah, there's still an existence,
See,
right?
you don't think I'm nuts?
No, no.
But can you imagine this is what you say to your daughter?
Kind of creepy.
It's
Very
awful.
creepy.
Well,
Yeah.
he was kind of like that anyway. But
Oh my goodness. Oh
but
my goodness.
I think about that. Once I read her obituary, I probably can take a breath.
Yes. Yeah. I
So,
would a big breath and then take a vacation.
so, and I know this to some of your listeners, this may sound cuckoo, but it doesn't feel finished.
Yeah.
I gave him a beautiful eulogy. Nobody else gave him a eulogy, but I knew what I expected of myself in
Right.
that moment. I wrote it very carefully.
Mhm.
Horrible, but not to say anything too flowery. And it still doesn't feel like he's completely dead, which is crazy, but not crazy.
Well, I think the eulogy that you probably did was more for yourself than for him because of the situation that has gone on throughout your life. Like you weren't giving him the send off, you were closing the door on like for
Absolutely.
yourself. And that's probably one of the best things you can do. And
Oh, yeah.
it's interesting because one of the coaching tools I use is to write your own eulogy
Mm-hmm.
and how you would want people to remember you and what
Oh, that's a lovely exercise.
it's a very interesting exercise. And how, like, did you create anything, did you leave a legacy behind? And it gets you thinking about, should I be doing this, that? Yes, exactly. So anyway, that's a great exercise. I highly recommend doing it. So
Oh,
yeah, so Roberta, would you tell us about your book, please?
about my book. Well, as it says, it's a story of resilience and hope, and it's a journey of uh, understanding what abuse is, the different levels of abuse. That abuse doesn't necessarily mean that you're being hit, doesn't mean that you're being beaten beyond recognition. It sometimes means that you're being demeaned to the point where you have no self-esteem. You're so off balance, you don't know what you're supposed to be or how you're supposed to feel about yourself. So that's the emotional abuse and the mental abuse. It's much harder to undo than the physical abuse. Your outer wounds heal, most of the time. I won't say everybody's do, but the inner wounds are the toughest ones to bring forth and heal for yourself. Sometimes I think what for those of us who have gone through this takes so long to heal is because we bury it,
Yes.
because we don't know how to fix it. And it's seriously facing a lot of demons, facing a lot of hard topics, hard situations, and the whys and wherefores of those situations.
Yeah. You're totally right about burying them. We do that because we don't have the coping tools. We don't know what we're supposed to do with these situations. So we just bury it, because if we let it out, we may get double, triple, somebody's going to see us or whatever. So we just assume that if we put it down deep enough, it won't ever come back out. But that's not how it works.
Does.
Oh my gosh. And it comes out at the worst times when you least expect it. And it's like, wait a minute, you have to deal with me, and you have to deal with me now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what you do, what help you get, what resources you use. And there's so many resources out there, but examining the past is very key. I think we need to watch and learn from what went on, how it affected us, where we felt it in our body, where it's living within us, because it's I honestly say it's like a big black tar pit that lives deep inside. And if you don't get rid of that, it's toxic. It'll kill you. And it will. It's destructive.
And I think that the phrase or the saying that you're hurting other people, you're hurting yourself, expecting yourself to drink poison and have other people die.
Mm-hmm.
And or that's it's sort of like that. I think a lot of us are self-punishing, and we're just not very good at being good to ourselves.
Well, do you think the self-punishing role comes from we were having backgrounds like we had? We were always being punished for something. And in my case, it was if I did anything or not, I was being punished for it. So we just assume that's normal. Well, if nobody else is going to punish, and if nobody else is going to punish us, we think we've done something wrong, so beat ourselves up for it.
Well, I think we're born guilty, with the kind of families we have. And not that we're actually born guilty, because we're born innocent.
Yes.
It's our treatment by these other people that shapes us.
Yes.
And if it feels normal for someone to smack you around, you're going to go into relationships with people who are going to. And I don't mean to put it lightly like that. But that's the only way that I'm going to put it right now.
It's the truth of it, because we're products of our environment, and
exactly.
We assume that that's what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to have. So that's what we look for.
Well, and if you grow up that way, you think everybody's growing up that way.
Very true. Very true.
I just figured I'd go over to my friends' houses and their parents would play nice, and they wouldn't be awful while we were there, just like my parents. Mm-hmm. And then when I left, there was probably all hell breaking loose. And that is not actually what was happening.
Yeah. It's amazing. And sometimes it takes us almost a lifetime to figure that out or see that and come to terms with it. But so where can we get copies of your book, my dear? And it's called The Shoulding. And why is it called The Shoulding, by the way?
The Shoulding, the first chapter I call Shoulding, Don't Should on Yourself. It's a self-shaming thing, I really should have done this, should have done that. And if I were a better person, I would have done that. Or, it's the self-shaming, which is why I have the pointed shaming finger on the book.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what I want the book to do is give someone a break. It doesn't have to be like a slew of people. It would be nice if a slew of people got help from my book, But I've always said if just one person gets help from being able to, that I've given them language to speak about it, and give them tools on how to unravel it, to be more forgiving of their own foibles, and be just gentler and kinder with themselves.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, I'm so stupid, because that's how we grew up. Oh, you're so stupid.
Yes.
And and when my friends say that about themselves, I always say, don't talk about my friends that way. Don't talk about my friend that way.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
So I would want them to take from this a journey of their own, where they can speak to someone, whether it's a counselor or a friend, and be open and feel safe to say those things. Yeah. I mean, the best thing about you is that I can say these things and, tell you what's going on and how it happened growing up. And you don't go, oh, that could have never happened. You just made that up. I've read your book, Teresa. And you know what I find interesting, and I just want to say this to the listeners and who's watching us now that we're on video, is this laughing camaraderie, sisterhood that we have took a year to be able to talk this openly about all of this, and to bond over something so horrible and have not false smiles on our faces and not unhappy lives. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
I totally agree with you. It took us a while to get going. We were in a book together originally, a few years ago, and it's just since then, that we've found each other. This is a return gig for you on my show, which I'm so thankful for, by the way.
Anytime you need me.
Oh, thanks. But I believe in what you're doing, and I believe in your story, and I know the pain that goes along with it. And nobody could make up those things. No. I happen to know.
We're good writers, but we couldn't make that stuff up. I say that a lot. I'm a writer, and I couldn't make that up.
No, there's something just really sick if we had to come up with that out of the blue, No, but sharing stories, sharing our stories for each of us, and in my case, if it only helps one person,
right, exactly,
then my job is done on this planet.
Yeah.
If it can help two, then that's awesome. Let's spread the word, and I believe you're the same way.
I am the same way. I just, I just wanted to facilitate language. Mm-hmm. And I also people who decided to read the book feel safe in their own story, that when they were ready to share, they could contact me, they could contact you, go to a therapist, interview therapists, several of them, until they found someone they were comfortable with.
Oh, absolutely. You don't have to settle for the first one, because I know in a lot of cases, you get stuck with someone who doesn't understand you, doesn't believe you, doesn't have the background maybe to understand or help what you've gone through. They're just there. They are there to provide a service for you. Do your research, do your due diligence, and find the right person that you can connect with, because if you don't connect, you don't trust that person, they're not going to help you.
Exactly. And
you've done that.
Yes, exactly. Me too. Therapist of 33 years finally retired.
Oh.
It's just like losing a limb.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I mean, we still talk occasionally, and because, after 33 years, you really blur the lines sometimes. I know about his wife and what he does for spare time, and, a lot of different things. And he became ill suddenly, so I was checking on him. I would call and say, do you need anything? And not that his wife couldn't do it for him, but, up for about 6 months, and now he's fine. And I don't know if I miss going there once a month. It feels different, but I do feel strong and healthy. So my sister, God love her, the one I don't talk to, the only sister I've got, said if he was a better therapist, you wouldn't have had to see him for so long.
Well, that's her version of it. So I think you can just leave that one with her.
Well, speaking with someone who isn't in, I wouldn't have been in therapy if I didn't think I had to be in therapy. It was important. It was hard work. He wrote the foreword to my book.
Yes.
So, it's not like I'm indebted to him for life. He helped me a lot. He's a really smart man. And, when you have a really long relationship and you have the right therapist, they won't take any BS from you. They'll call you on it right away and they go, oh, who do you think you're talking to?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you have the right therapist.
That's right. And you know what? It's relationship building. And I think that's key. You need to have that connected relationship with who's helping you, because otherwise it's that trust issue again. And, you were speaking earlier about not saying the last word. Or not having it sounds like the sister issue is, don't even go there, right?
I haven't talked to her in years. It's fine.
There you go. So she doesn't even need an answer to that.
Well, she's very much like my parents. So it's not a relationship I would pursue because it's not good for me. And that's the other thing before we wrap this up. You figure out after a while what is good for you.
Yes.
What you don't need to engage in and what you should engage in, where your energy should go, and who you should spend your time with. And also, there is nothing wrong with having a date with Dateline on a Friday night. You don't have to be in a relationship. You can be your own complete person and stop shooting on yourself as, why don't I have a partner? Do you know how many people want to fix me up all the time? No. No.
I think you've
I'm writing a book about that. No.
Yeah, been there, done that.
Yeah.
That's another
That's a whole other book we'll talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's really important to be able to say to someone, I am having a relationship with myself finally.
Yeah. And being comfortable in your own skin with who you are, why you're here, and what you're going to contribute to the world. It doesn't mean you have to be associated with someone else. So, yeah, I think you're on the right track, my dear. And yay. That's why you're such a warrior goddess.
Warrior goddess.
Yeah.
I wish I had my cup right here. I do have the picture if you're going to post it on your website. I did.
I will use that one, definitely. So, Roberta, tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you, because I'm sure there's a lot of questions that they should be asking you.
Yes, you should.
You should.
Well, you can get in touch with me on Twitter at at the shoulding. So capital T, capital S, the shoulding. And also, I've got a Facebook page, Roberta Brown Author, and I am on LinkedIn. It's just Roberta Brown, and it's got the various things I do, but the book is on the same LinkedIn page as my professional career. Okay. And those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Excellent. And we will be posting, we'll be posting all the links and everything with the segment. And do you have a favorite saying or quote that you'd like to share?
Oh, Maya Angelou. My two favorite quotes are from Maya Angelou, and they're parts of quotes because they're much larger, but I took what I needed, which is, when people show you who they really are, believe them. If they show themselves as being a terrible person, you are not the person that's going to change that.
Very true.
But that whole Cinderella effect, princess effect, as we're growing up, it's like, oh, but if he loves me, or if this person really wants to be with me, they'll just adhere to whatever I need them to be for me. No, it doesn't work that way.
I'll change them after we get married.
Oh, yeah. I've never heard that.
No.
And also, when you know better, you do better. So God love Maya Angelou, God rest her soul. And it is true. The more knowledge you have about yourself, the better you will do.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And it's funny, I saw something the other day, and I think you and I both are the black sheeps of the family. Yeah. And I like the color black, by the way.
I do too.
Yeah. So it was something along the lines of the black sheep of the family is not the evil one. It's just that they see through everybody else's stuff.
Yes.
Something along that line. I thought it was very appropriate.
It is.
Yeah.
And
that's why we don't fit.
That's why we don't fit. We've talked about this not fitting thing.
Yeah.
I'm nothing like anybody in my family. I feel like there are days that I was born on Pluto or something. And if I didn't look so much like my mother, I would say I was adopted.
There you
go. I look very much like my mother.
Okay, well,
and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying I cannot even hope to have been adopted. But I just, I was raised in a family of narcissists, and I'm not a narcissist. I wrote a memoir, which doesn't make me a narcissist. It just makes me someone who wants to share the good fortune I've had to unravel some of this stuff and to help other people.
Yeah. And it's not that we write these things to get notoriety or get famous or anything like that. It wasn't in my case either. It was just to share my story so that if one other person read it and they recognized themselves in it and it helped them, that was worth it. That was worth the entire thing. And it's actually happened. So I'm quite proud of that. So
yes, and I am as well. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me. And I will never look at bottle caps the same. Ever.
Yeah, exactly. Neither will I.
Here's a teaser for your book.
Thank you. Find out about what beer bottle caps mean. Oh my goodness. And plywood. It's a
plywood. Yes.
Yeah, it's a combination.
That is stuck in my psyche forever. Anyway.
And I wonder why I have bad knees.
Yeah, well, exactly.
But anyway, that taught me a lot of life lessons out of that. So
of course. And so what not to do.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, lady, I love you. I thank you for being with us today.
Course.
And we need to do this again.
Yes.
When that next book comes out, because that
book. It's
It's
going to be a bombshell, babe.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a good one because I have to know the story.
Well, lots of stories and lots of, it should be funny. And my book at times, this book is funny at times because you have to take a break in between, oh my God. And hopefully this next book is just going to be funny and people will relate to what people say on dates and what people do to each other, and and the working title, what is it now? Welcome to Dating Hell, or Does That Ever Work for You?
Oh, I like it. I like both of them, actually. I think it's knowing the story. I think they're both very appropriate.
So. Yeah, I think that it's just going to be one's the title, and then there's a little subtitle.
Yes,
I'll use them both. So.
Sounds like a good plan. Well, listen. Thank you. And as I say, everything, all your listings, all your link for your book and all your contact information will be listed with the segment. And thank you again for being just the warrior goddess you are, soul sister, and a dear friend of mine. Thank you.
I love you.
Love you too. Is that how it goes? I don't know these things.
I love you in sign language.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you so much, Roberta.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That brings to a close another great, inspiring interview on Powering Through Life. Thank you to my incredible guest for sharing your thoughts and wisdoms with our listeners. If you would like to connect with us, go to www.teresasims.com. And there you will also find all the previous segments from many amazing and inspiring people. Remember, don't be shy. Reach out if you have any questions or just leave me a comment. So thank you once again for listening to Powering Through Life.